School Board organizational meeting. Before we have a roll call, I want to read a statement here. The oath of office was administered to the re-elected board members, Mr. Dave Grant and Mr. Tom Leeds, by Amy Moore, Treasurer, CFO, at the Monroe Elementary cafeteria prior to the start of this meeting. Mrs. Moore, call the roll, please.
Mr. Leeds?
Present.
Mr. Carpenter?
Present.
Mr. Grant?
Here.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Present.
Mr. Fulham?
Here.
Okay, are there any additions or corrections to the agenda? If not, do I have approval to accept the agenda as written?
So moved. Second.
Okay, Mr. Grant and Mr. Carpenter. Now I need approve the agenda. Motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Okay, approved by Mrs. Hagedorn, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Fulham. Mrs. Moore, and any discussion? Nope. Mrs. Moore, call the roll.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Sorry. Mr. Grant?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
At this time, I entertain nominations for the president of the Monroe Local School Board for this coming year.
I'd like to nominate Mr. Carpenter.
Mr. Carpenter's been nominated. Do we have any other nominations for president? If not, I declare the nominations closed. And is there any other discussion first?
I will second that.
You can second it?
I
Okay.
will second it.
Second by Mr. Grant. Any discussion? Mrs. Moore, call the roll, please.
Mr. Leeds?
Oh, B.
Aye.
Oh, sorry, was it Mr. Fulham?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Abstain.
Okay, you have elected Mr. Carpenter to be president of the board for the coming year. Mrs. Moore, would you administer the oath?
It hasn't happened yet, guys. We can still.
You could still mess this up.
It's all predicated on this.
Will you solemnly affirm that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Ohio, and that you will faithfully and impartially discharge your duties as President of the Board of Education of the Monroe Local School District Board of Education, Butler County, Ohio, to the best of your ability and in accordance with the laws now in effect and hereafter to be enacted during your continuance in said office and until your successor is chosen and qualified?
I will.
Congratulations. Mr. Carpenter, I'm going to give you the javelin. You ask to proceed with the rest of the meeting. Oh, here, you may need this.
I was just going to hit AJ, Rob.
Congratulations.
Thank you. All right. Item 6.1, nomination of the office of president, closed, vote taken. We already did that. All right, so item 7, nomination of the office of vice president. I'll take a motion to open this discussion.
I will make a motion to nominate Debbie Hagedorn as vice president.
Debbie, do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have any other nominations?
I will call the roll.
If not, Mrs. Moore, you can call the roll.
Mr. Grant?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Abstain.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye, motion carried.
You got to close it.
Yep. Section 8, Nomination of the office of Vice President, closed vote taken. Mrs. Moore, we deliver the oath of office for Mrs. Hagedorn.
Certainly. Were there any objections? I think we skipped a step there.
I don't know, this
But
is
that's
super
okay.
confusing to me.
It's okay.
Just take a motion.
Yeah, can I get a motion to,
Motion.
To close it.
a second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Grant, second by Mr. Leeds.
Okay, Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Abstain.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion carried.
Thank you.
Now you
Now she's in this. All right, Debbie.
Did we have
Run around.
What a runaround.
We did?
can. Yeah.
I must have been blacking out during that time period.
The organization meeting is like really weird.
Will you solemnly affirm that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Ohio, and that you will faithfully and impartially discharge your duties as Vice President of the Board of Education of the Monroe Local School District Board of Education, Butler County, Ohio, to the best of your ability and in accordance with the laws now in effect and hereafter to be enacted during your continuance in said office and until your successor is chosen and qualified? I will. Thank you.
I'm the only one that said I do.
How's it make you feel?
I messed up. Congratulations, Debbie.
Congratulations. All right, item 9, establish board service fund. It is recommended the board establish a service fund beginning January 1, 2024, in the amount of $20,000 for calendar year 2024 pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 3315.15. Can I get a motion?
Go ahead.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Grant, second by Mr. Fulham. Any questions? Mrs. Moore, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion carried. Section 10, appoint legislative liaison, Monroe Area Community Improvement Corporation representative, and Butler Tech Board of Education liaison for calendar year. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. So, so it is recommended the board appoint one member to serve as the Monroe Local School District's legislative liaison to the Ohio School Board Association for the calendar year 2024.
I would like to recommend or nominate, I know we typically have 2 on the legislative, and I would like to nominate Tom Leeds and AJ for the legislative.
Do we need a second?
Yes.
I'll second that.
Okay. B, it is recommended that the board appoint one member to serve as the Monroe Local School District Student Achievement Liaison to the Ohio School Board Association for the calendar year 2024.
Recommend Mrs. Hagedorn.
I will second that.
Anybody else? No? It is recommended that the board appoint one member to serve as the Monroe Local School District's representative with the Monroe Area Community Improvement Corporation.
I would like to nominate Tom Leeds.
I'll second that.
And finally, it is recommended that the board appoint one member to serve as the Monroe Local School District's representative to Butler Tech Board of Education.
I'd like to nominate Mr. Brett Guido.
And I'll second that.
Is there any other discussion on this? I believe we'll do one vote for the entire group.
Correct.
Yep.
Correct.
Okay. We ready? Okay.
Ready when you are.
Mr. Leeds,
Abstain?
Mr.
How-
Fulham,
How can we, hold on, if,
You
yeah,
got three.
we
You got
can't.
three. You got three you can vote.
Yeah, we have three.
No, Debbie, myself, and Tom.
You don't have to abstain from these.
Because I can approve everybody else, all the other ones.
Okay.
I can take each vote separately then, if that will help.
That would be legal. Yeah.
Do them individually.
Okay. So for item A,
Legislative?
for the Legislative Committee, we have Mr. Leeds and Mr. Fulham,
Correct.
and that would be. for roll-
Motion by Grant, second by Hagedorn.
Got it. Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Abstain?
Mr. Fulham,
Abstain.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye. Motion carried. For B, we have a motion by Mr. Fulham, a second by Mr. Grant. And that was for Mrs. Hagedorn to be the Student Achievement
Correct.
Liaison.
All right, Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Abstain.
and Mr. Carpenter.
Aye. Motion carried.
CIC.
And then for section C, we had it's for the Monroe Area Community Improvement Corporation. The appointee was Tom Leeds. Motion by Dave Grant, second by Mr. Fulham.
Thank you. Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Abstain?
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion carried. And for section D, the appointment to Butler Tech Board of Education. It was recommended that Mr. Brett Guido be the appointee. Motion by Mr. Leeds, second by Mr. Grant.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion carried.
Okay.
Did we
All right.
open with a motion for 10-1? Do we need to close 10-1, technically?
I think technically we do.
Who motioned originally?
Who
for-
opened up that,
For 10-1?
Originally for 10-1.
was that Mr. Grant that opened that?
Yeah.
I have Mr.
And then a
Grant.
second by Mr. Leeds,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, we can close 10-1.
You go ahead and call the roll for that.
Yes. Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion carried. Section 11, appointment of board subcommittees for calendar year. Can I get a motion to open this?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr.
Second?
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. The subcommittees would be the Facility Subcommittee and the Finance Subcommittee.
Right.
I'll take any recommendations for appointment to subcommittees.
Say for facilities will be, I recommend Dave Grant and Tom Leeds.
Mr. Grant, Mr. Leeds. What about Finance Subcommittee?
I'll recommend Mrs. Hagedorn and Mr. Grant.
Any conversation?
Nope.
Good. Mrs. Moore, would you call the roll?
Yes. Mr. Grant,
Abstain?
Mr. Leeds,
Abstain?
Wait, we're going to have to do
We're
a
going to have to do
separate.
individual because
okay.
We have too many, don't we?
Yeah.
That's fun. All right.
So we need a,
We need a second for the facilities. It was recommended by
it was
Mr.
recommended.
Fulham.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And Debbie will, did you second the facilities?
I will, I'll second it.
Second by
Okay.
Mrs. Hagedorn.
Yeah.
All right. Mrs. Moore, you call the roll.
I will. Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Abstain.
Mr. Grant,
Abstain?
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion carried. So I have a motion by Mr. Leeds for the Finance Subcommittee, the appointment of Mrs. Hagedorn, Mr. Grant. Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Or did I? Who did that originally?
Mr. Leeds.
Oh, okay, sorry.
All right.
You call the
Mr.
roll.
Leeds,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mr. Grant,
Abstain?
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Abstain.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion carried. And I had a motion by Mr. Grant, a second by Mr. Leeds to bring us into this discussion. Can I get a roll call to close this discussion, please?
Yes. Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion carried. Yeah, these should be pretty straightforward now. All right, Section 12, approve legal counsel. It is recommended the board approve the following legal counsel for the Monroe Board of Education for the calendar year 2024 for such matters as may from time to time be referred by the board superintendent, treasurer / CFO. Enos Britton Dinsmore as the bond counsel, and Rich and Gillis Law Group. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Grant.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Any questions?
Nope.
Call the roll, please.
Yes. Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion carried. All right, Section 13, appointment of Records Commission for calendar year. It is recommended that the Records Commission of the Monroe Local School District will be comprised of the President of the Board of Education, the Superintendent, and the Treasurer / CFO of the district. May I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Grant.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Any questions? Mrs. Moore, you call the roll, please.
Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion carried. Section 14, the resolution for waiver of reading minutes. It is recommended that in accordance with Section 3313.26 of the Ohio Revised Code, the board waive the reading of minutes for previous meetings. May I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Mrs. Hagedorn. Thank you, Mr. Grant. Are you guys sure? We could go through and read all these minutes, and it'd be really fun for everybody. No? Okay. Ms. Moore, will you call the roll?
Yes. Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye. Motion carried. Section 15, recognition of newspapers of record for calendar year. We recognize the following as the newspapers of record for 2024, the Journal News and the Cincinnati Enquirer. May I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Any questions or comments?
Yes. We try again and see if the newspaper has any damn pencils or anything, they can write something down for us. Tell it like it is.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Anybody else? No? Okay. Mrs. Moore, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye. Motion carried. And I knew that one was coming too. It's good times. All right. Section 16, renew membership in the Ohio School Board Association, including Legal Assistance Fund and the Ohio Education Policy Institute. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Thank you, Mr. Grant. And there is a note in here. The OSBA Legal Assistance Fund costs $250. The 2024 membership for OSBA costs $6,668 plus the newsletter subscription of $150, and the Ohio Education Policy Institute for 2024 costs $1,000. Any comments, discussion?
No.
No? Ms. Moore, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye, motion carried. Section 17, approve board meeting dates and meeting start time for current calendar year. It's all listed here if anybody would like to read through that, but that includes our regular meetings for each month plus work sessions. May I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Grant.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. And all meetings do start at 6 p.m., except for this one, of course. All right, any discussion, questions? No? All right, Mrs. Moore, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Grant?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye, motion carried. All right, Section 18, resolution adopting superintendent standing authorizations for the calendar year. The recommended action is to enable the superintendent to carry out necessary district duties involving operations, finances, and purchasing. It is recommended that the board approve to adopt the following standing authorizations for the calendar year 2024. May I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Any questions? All right, Mrs. Moore, can you call the roll?
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye, motion carried. Section 19, resolution reviewing the current parent and family involvement policy 2111 as required by the Ohio Department of Education. May I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Grant. Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Any questions? Mrs. Moore, may you call the roll, please?
Mr. Grant?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye, motion carried. Section 20, approval of tax budget for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Grant.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Any questions?
I have some comments.
Mm-hmm.
Give me 1 second here. So the tax budget is a formality that is required by the revised code each year. We must file it annually with the County Budget Commission unless they approve a waiver. They can do that. Some counties in Ohio do that. Butler County does not, so we must file it in its traditional format. I would like to point out that we are also required to hold a public hearing for the tax budget, which was held prior to this meeting, and it started at 5:30. Once this document is approved by the board, we submit it to the County Budget Commission, and they review it and approve it. The whole purpose of this document is to evaluate the necessity of levying the current tax rates for the various types of levies that we have. It is based on current rates. No new levies can be incorporated into this document. It is basically the first official look, including estimated revenues for the fiscal year '25 budget year. But the county reports on a calendar year, so it's split up into 6-month pieces for our purposes to spread it across 2 fiscal years to get the calendar year information. I'd like to point out one of the things that this document does. We have the current rates, if you scroll down just a little bit. So these are the rates that have been sent up to the state. They won't be official until around January 20th, but these are the rates that have been calculated to support our needs for the coming year. These are the rates that will be on the tax bills that go out probably in a couple of weeks. And I will have if you flip to the next page, please. I'll have a slide at the end to compare our rates so you can kind of see over time how they've changed and how this year compares to last year. This page is just a little bit, that was a detail of the rates, sorry. Our substitute levies, if you scroll right there. We have our continuing levy at 16.87, and that plus our inside millage gets us to the 20 mil floor, and then we have the 2 substitute levies currently totaling 12.06 mils. The next grouping of pages, this document goes through the general fund at a fairly detailed level. This information pretty much rolls right from our 5-year forecast that was already discussed and approved in November. So I won't spend a lot of time on that. If you're interested in comparing it to the forecast, the totals page here, the ending fund balance, that'll match up to what's on our forecast with all that detail. The next page is the debt service fund. We have to give detail regarding that since we have levies going into our debt service fund to collect, to make our debt payments. And then the next couple of pages are all the other funds, special revenue funds, activity funds, grant funds, and such. And then here we have, we just have to point out our anticipated capital expenditures. Since we haven't gone through our full budget process yet, these are just generic estimates. And then this last page, this one's probably one of the most important pages in this document because it outlines our debt schedule and our debt payments needed for the next year, which is what they base the debt service millage on. We have to make sure that we have enough money levied to come in to make these debt payments. It also gives us the maturity dates in that due date column. I know it's a little small, but it shows, we have our one piece of debt coming off in 2026, and then the next 2 larger chunks coming off in 2029, which we've talked about as part of our facilities planning. So that probably the thing you'll be more interested in than that fabulous traditional format. There's a couple of charts here. This is our tax valuations over the years, collection years 2018 to 2024. These valuations, so the blue is our Butler County properties, and the orange is our Warren County properties. We have a little bit in Warren County. So you can see that drastic change in the valuations for this year. In Butler County, it went from about $368 million to about $477.
Is that with the new tax schedule?
Yes. Yeah, these are confirmed. Yeah.
So that can change with the July taxation period, right? Because aren't they going to reduce the property tax for the second half?
That would only be if there's a legislative change. So at this point, these are set until we hear otherwise.
Right, okay.
Yep.
That's what we'll know.
Yep. And then here are our rates. So as you can see, the bottom 2, the 3.13 and the 16.87 for 2024, those 2 get us to our 20 mil floor, and the amounts have fluctuated a little bit. We actually had, it was a little higher back in 2018. And then we have the 2.03, that goes toward our permanent improvements, and that's constant. Our bonded debt levy, it had been at 4.5, it dropped down to 4, and as our debt needs fluctuate, they adjust that rate. This year, it's going to be at 3.5. So, and as our values go up, those types of rates go down. And then the same with our substitute levies, because those are fixed rate levies as well. We need to collect less millage in order to satisfy the total dollars to be collected. So we went from 41.44 effective rate to a 37.59. Now again, those particular rates have not been confirmed by the state yet, but that is what was sent to the state. That's all I have.
That's good.
You have any questions?
These rates, I know you said January they'll be approved, like January's 20th. Will these also, what was sent up to the state, all of it's approved by the end of the month?
Yeah,
Okay.
I believe they have until the 20th.
Okay. That's it.
All right, any other questions? All right, Mrs. Moore, would you call the roll?
Yes. Mr. Grant?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye, motion carried. Section 21, approve the treasurer's standing authorizations for the calendar year. May I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Grant.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Can I just make one comment on this one? New this year, I added item J, which is to authorize the treasurer as the public records training designee for the board. I mean, unless anyone opposes that and wants to attend the public records training. You're more than welcome to do that as well.
We appreciate you taking that off.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
We were going to say something about it, but
You got to
Since you brought it up.
yeah.
All right. Mrs. Moore, would you call the roll?
Yes. Mr. Grant?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye, motion carried. And I'll take a motion to adjourn the organizational meeting at 6:32.
So moved.
Mr.
Second.
Fulham, thank you, Mr. Grant. Mrs. Moore, would you call the roll?
Yes. I'm sorry, which was the motion?
Mr. Fulham,
Okay.
second by Mr. Grant.
All right. Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye, motion carried.
You're going to get more.
All right.
Does anybody need a break, or are we good?
I know, does anybody need the break?
We good?
I'm good. Everyone good?
Good.
All right. Good evening, everybody, and I would like to welcome you to the regular meeting of the Monroe Local Schools, January 8th, 2024. We're doing the early January session in here. It's good times. Mrs. Moore, would you call the roll?
Yes. Mr. Carpenter?
Present.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Here.
Mr. Grant?
Here.
Mr. Leeds?
Here.
Mr. Fulham?
Here.
Would everybody stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? No. I will take a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Grant.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Mrs. Moore, would you call the roll?
Mr. Grant?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye, motion carried. Discussion and comments from the board. 2.1 legislative.
Nothing going on because I just got back to work today, but there is a internal fighting among the kids in the Senate. They're fighting in their cribs, and nothing is being done at this time. I've talked to several legislators, and they are very upset that there's two people. Matt Hoffman's one of them, and the other one I'm not sure about, but they are fighting because both of them want to be the head of the Senate. So nothing, as I say, I talked to Thomas Hall, and he is very upset, and so is George Lang, although he's not in the Senate, but nothing's being done. So that's where we are.
Sounds pretty counterproductive.
It is, yeah.
Par for the course then. All right. Thank you, Mr. Leeds. 2.2, Butler Tech. Mr. Guido.
Mr. President, Madam Vice President, members of the board, Happy New Year. Thank you for my support. I appreciate you sending me back with 4 construction projects going on. There's quite a load there, and the continuity in the position is greatly appreciated. So I don't have as much to report on either. Everything from December has been closed out. Nobody did a lot during the holiday. The only thing that we really have done is the initial meetings with the architect for the Hook Field, the aviation program construction project has started. We had one meeting with them. And then another thing that we did get in conjunction with that was we had applied for an Ohio Site Inventory Program grant through Jobs Ohio, and that was received. So we received $1 million grant to help with the funding for that particular building. When I went to Phoenix, we visited a aviation program out there and saw their hangar, and it was unbelievably impressive. So it was, hopefully we can put something together similar to that. I don't think it'll be to that scale, but it will be put together in a way to serve all their needs of their students, and we can go from there. The only other thing that Robert has had conversations with Mr. Graft about changing the way we do 8th grade tours and all that. You know how they bring the trailer out here. It's a way for 8th graders to explore career tech as options and see what they may be interested in. And then there is the tour that they all go on. There is talk, and I don't know if this is actually going to happen or not. It's really going to depend on the input from all 11 school districts as well as the cost of it all. But partially embedding somebody in here that can be more than just a quick one-day introduction to career tech, have them just get a little bit better idea of what's available out there and maybe prepare for that process as they come closer to their 10th or 11th grade years in the program. So more to come on that. I will share that we did have our first dual enrolled student in the for the career tech dollars that will pay for them to attend adult ed. Remember, this is the program that is like CCP. So instead of going to Miami University, you can use that same money for career tech dollars. We have a firefighting student that she wants to learn how to weld. And so she's attending our firefighting program during the day and then going to evening classes for the welding program. And that is covered through the Ohio schools money that's out there for them. So again, that's a brand new program. I'm positive it's going to grow in popularity as it comes on board, but excited to see that come aboard. That's all I have.
Excellent.
Any questions?
Thanks for sending out the newsletter too. That was really cool.
Yeah.
Our organizational meeting is not until next week, so I don't know. I don't have anything obviously this month, but if I get a digital copy, I'll send it out as well. So,
Excellent.
all right.
Thank you, Mr. Guido.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations, Tim
Thank you.
and Debbie.
Section 2.3, Finance.
We didn't have a meeting this month.
You didn't have a meeting in the
We were.
during that break period between the organizational meeting? And
We tried to, everybody's
Crazy.
busy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I sat here for 2 hours waiting for Mr. Leeds to show up.
He's like that. All right, section 2.4, student achievement.
Student achievement. So have a little bit here for having the holiday season. There's a lot going on in Monroe. So on December 20th, the boys basketball team helped the school to load extra donated food to give to the Monroe Nazarene Church. In addition, that same day, they heard that Paul's needed assistance with offloading a truckload of dog food so they could return the truck. The boys basketball team had a great day helping the community. In addition, the girls varsity basketball team, students from the Hornets Athletic Leadership Organization, along with several other volunteers, assisted the Monroe Success with annual holiday distribution event and helped with delivering 97 Monroe families with gifts for the holiday season, and 111 families received fresh food items. And when they saw a need in the community, they stepped up and did a great job. And then Gifts for the Heart, the students raised $1,409.71. This was a combined effort from the junior high and high school students. I'd like to recognize that Mr. Brinkman had 8 students audition for the Ohio Music Education Association District 13 Honor Band. 4 students were selected and 2 alternates were selected to participate. These students will practice this weekend and perform on Sunday, January 14th at Mason High School. So I'd like to congratulate Ariana Gordon, 7th grade, Addison Herring, 8th grade, Sarah Hahn, 9th grade, Clayton Herring, 9th grade, Callie Powell, who's a junior, and Spencer Regal, who's a senior. And every quarter, Monroe Junior High staff nominates one student who has nominates students who have excelled, most improved, showed relentless effort. These students received a gift certificate to Texas Roadhouse, but more importantly, they got to eat breakfast with Mr. Stanger. So I'd like to congratulate Jay Green, Landon Owens, Evelyn Santiago, Ryan Johnson, Cameron Deere, Lydia Price, Asheen Pandor, Sean Manghoff, Jolene Sopp, Wyatt Wheeler, Sierra Stacy, Kaylin Cochran, Shane Cramons, Cooper Diver, Marley Reed, Peyton Moore, Fiza Iqbal, Coda Douglas, Sahi Agawalar, sorry if I screwed that one up, Layla Ogden, Katie Dirksen, Lucas Emergenson, Olivia Birkland, Brody Thatcher, Alexis Mulcahy, and Anthony Joseph. So congratulations, and I hope you enjoyed breakfast. So for the elementary students, we have December Student of the Months. For 2nd grade, we have Andrew Proselli, Angela Meza, Bailey Schwartz, Cooper Davis, Jenna Brandon, Kayleen Parks, Leah Moore, Tegan Krakis, and Zeke Manier. 3rd grade Student of the Months were Anarv Timsina, Damian Aquash, Emerson Grimes, Harrison Drone, Heidi Vasquez, Jaden Singh, Kaden Ross, Mariah Baba, Yara Farah. In 4th grade, we have Alex Dyer, Bryn Terrell, Elijah Slott, Emmeline Green, Emona Islamova, Josie Lambert, Peyton Gibbs, Taya Husky. In 5th grade, we have Aaliyah Garrett, Brooklyn Bassford, Eli Armstrong, Elodie Wilson, Jackson Tudor, Kyron Talley, Marcus Valerius, Nikhil Aguilar, Parker Saylor. And for 6th grade Student of the Months, we had Amber Matthews, Amos Fry, Bentley Thacker, Caden Gross, Declan Davis, Gavin Howell, Kennedy DeBoard, McKenna Sainin. So congratulations to all those students. And that's all that I have.
Very good.
Very good.
All right, thank you. All right, item 2.5, MEA. No? All right, moving along to communications from the public, having none. We will move on to item 3.2, superintendent's update. Mr. Buskirk.
All right, good evening. Welcome back to second semester. It was kind of nice last week to ease into things a little bit with a 2-day week, and now everybody's back in the swing of things. Everybody had some nice time away to relax, recharge, get ready for the second semester here. So I wanted to first talk a little bit about, I got an email, it might have been over break, from Mr. Leeds with some questions on the report card primarily around primary, third grade. It was I think third grade scores, the early childhood scores, and chronic truancy. So I just wanted to address real quickly two of those areas. So first of all, with the early childhood literacy, obviously that is a strong focus that we have. And I think I shared earlier that I know Mr. Leeds really likes to talk about what our numbers are in comparison to Ross. So if you saw in that one category that you shared that the Ross has their kids, their first assessment they get coming into kindergarten, it says they're above the 90%, so that's why they were not graded in that area, and so that actually bumped up two of their other spots. If you look at our overall report card, every other area almost is identical. I'm not making excuses, but I do want to share something that I shared before, is that our ELL population in comparison to Ross is currently, Ross has 12 total in the district compared to 188 for us. So obviously, the younger kids, that is going to be a greater impact when English is not their primary language. It's going to take some time for us to get them caught up to where we are. Addressing that specifically, as you guys know, we've added 2 English language learner teachers over the last 2 years. And what I think is more important is at the end, the overall, if you look at our performance index, which is a grading of the entire district, everybody, it's almost identical to Ross. So I think our performance index was 86.5 and theirs is 87. So to be honest, if I look at those numbers, I think that our staff has really overcome a lot more and done a great job there. As far as the chronic absenteeism, there is something that we have changed, and hopefully that will help in that area. Chronic absenteeism is only for students that are absent without a doctor's note. Any medical excuses do not count against. Almost every district across the state of Ohio is consistent that you get 10 days with what they call, I don't know where the term came from, I guess because it usually was the mommy note, meaning that a parent can call in or write a note and say they're going to be home sick. After those 10 days, that's when you need a medical excuse or it becomes unexcused. Something that Monroe has done, and we are switching, is that we had those 10 days, and then we also had a vacation policy where we allow students to go a one-time vacation. Well, that was in addition to those 10 days, where almost everywhere else that I've ever been, and I know that Kelly Duddleson, our attendance officer, has looked into this a lot, those coincide. So if, for example, Debbie wants to take her kids on a week vacation, that's fine, but those are 5 of those days. Then if they miss another 5 days, they can still use those notes. Anything beyond that, you're going to need a doctor's excuse. So we have made that switch, and hopefully that cuts down on, again, some of our absenteeism. So I just wanted to clarify those. I hope that answers your questions.
Yeah, well,
Mr.
I mean, I challenged ODE. I talked to them and I said that I don't believe you are talking apples to apples here.
Right. And she literally, Jody and I talked about this, she literally copied and pasted from what, if you went to the website, the definition of it. So, anyway, so I just wanted to share that piece there with you. Next item I have is the second drive that we've been exploring to main campus, access to main campus. Jesse and I have been working with the architects and the engineer from Kleininger's on getting that started. And as I shared, the first step is a traffic study, and because of the location on Todd Hunter and proximity to, or I'm on Yankee in proximity to Todd Hunter and 63, they need to do 6 different intersections. So we got the number. I don't like the number, but we checked into it. They said that's pretty much the number. It's probably going to be about a little over $20,000 to do that traffic study. We're going to try to see if we can get anything done with that number, but checking around, they said that's pretty much the going rate for that. So that'll probably, if we do, it'll probably be on our next board agenda. I just wanted to give you the heads up
Does that
there.
cover all 6 of the intersections?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yep. So that would be the complete traffic study and recommendation, so we can move forward with the next steps to add in that second.
So we've had traffic studies done in the past. Are we able to leverage any of our previous traffic studies?
We did sit down and look at that, but they've been old enough that the traffic patterns and traffic has changed enough, they need us to do a new one, so that's why.
Is that a county study?
It is, so oddly enough, Yankee, the line is right down the middle of it, is half city, half township.
Yeah.
So, we're gonna see if maybe the city wants to share that cost. I don't know if they will, but it's worth a try, so.
Okay.
Because it does impact the city traffic, so we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see, so. It'd be a good chance for me to meet the new city manager. So.
All right.
Nice to meet you. I need
Here's the bill.
Nice to
$10,000.
meet you. Here's a bill for $22,000. So the next item I have is talking about the school property and the farmland that we know has become a very hot topic, especially during the latest township trustee race. So, as you know, we honestly, we're tired of kind of dealing with it being in the middle, and that's not why we're here. We're here to educate kids, not talk about what the land is for. So, I reached out to Butler Tech, and they do want some of the land, and so I have my map up here. If you see the blue area, that's currently being farmed, but the Butler Tech, with the addition of the new building, you can see the Google Maps old, it's just dirt, but that's where the building is. They lost pasture, so they need more pasture, so they would like to expand the pasture to go all the way down and encompass this field. Obviously, it's going to be some fencing and stuff, but they would like to use that. As far as the remaining fields, clearly our discussion for the drive, it's going to take up some of this farmland in this field right here. And correct me if I'm wrong with any of these numbers, Mr. Leeds or Jesse, you may know. This field right here is somewhere between 7 and 9 acres. This is somewhere between 6 and 8 acres, and this is somewhere around 7 to 9 acres as well. So we have explored lots of options. We actually offered it to Butler Tech. They didn't have any immediate use. They don't have a landscaping program anymore. He said they could use it for heavy machinery, but then it would look like it was always under construction, and I didn't feel like that was a good thing, and he understood that. So they really only want to use this right in the immediate. Jesse met with an organization called Pheasants Forever, and they are a nonprofit organization that will actually pay you to turn it into a wildlife preserve. The problem with that there is some upfront cost to prepare it to be a preserve and planning, and there's lots of guidelines, and our cross-country track does go through. It was going to be probably more hassle than it's worth. So I had an idea, and I thought, well, I'd try one last ditch effort. I met with Mr. Garver, Michael, and Mark, and then I also met with the Majors Farms. And as you guys know, the Majors Farms does the sweet corn fundraiser annually and they're very generous, and it raised about $20,000 for the athletic department and the community athletic department. And when I met with each group, they've agreed to this, but, and I'll get everything written up if you guys are okay with this. This plot, which is about 7 to 9 acres, is going to be used by Majors Farms to do the sweet corn fundraiser. And then the Garvers will farm these 2 plots moving forward at the county market rate set by the Department of Agriculture. And both parties have agreed to that. These 2 fields will flip-flop annually for crop rotation, but moving forward, that's what we'll do. If things decide that we can't get along and things don't go well, Mr. Leeds has offered to let it go and bush hog it for us. So I think this is a great compromise. Hopefully the things can continue. Those are great fundraisers for the school district. And there is a lot of history with that family and those two plots.
That north field will be about 3 acres after we get done with the,
Yeah.
with the driveway.
We don't know exactly. As we met with the city and township engineers, you can't just do it right on the property line, which is there. There's a certain amount of space.
Yeah.
They have also thought that they may, and I don't necessarily want this, but if they tell us that's where it has to go, that's where it has to go. Over here, these plots of land, it's somewhere like right in here, right in the middle of that field. This plot of land right here is Garver Farms, and this is Michael Garver.
Right.
And they said they may want to do the drive coming out right where those two plots meet in case somewhere down the road they do something where they want an exit there, so they meet up. Speaking with the Garvers, they said there's no plans for anything to do there. They thought if there was they've already met to talk about their new bus structure down here. If they were to do a second drive onto Yankee, it would exit somewhere in the middle of this field, so. But yeah, you're right, Tom, that drive is gonna take up some of that acreage as well, so.
Okay. And I know you had mentioned the cross-country course. Where does that go will that be part of the Butler Tech land or
I don't know exactly.
or the majors?
Toward the detention area, so the right-hand side of the picture where the blue line is, goes down there and
Yeah.
goes around that detention
Yep.
basin close
Right.
to 63.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so it's,
yeah, it goes from basically the stop sign at the top of the hill down. along
Down
the
that blue line.
up the
down
town.
the blue
We're
line?
looking at like
Okay.
a bridge to cross that detention basin. with.
Yep,
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're keeping that in mind too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
The cross-country
Yep.
course, okay.
yep.
Well, congratulations on being the pursuer of peace
Yes.
of the community. So that's a great
So-
solution.
We'll see.
Is this something with the farmers that's going to be reviewed annually, or how
Yes.
often is that going to be
Yep.
looked? Okay,
We'll have it written in there that annually we can end the agreement at any point, so.
okay.
It's actually really good news.
Yeah, I hope so.
So, I'm sorry.
okay.
So just to clarify for the front properties, like every year, they're going to
These two would
switch,
flip-flop,
Garver
yep.
and Majors are going to switch their land?
Yep,
and-
because you have to do, you can't do
The
same
same
crop
crop.
on the same
Okay.
field every, you have to
Yeah.
rotate your crops, so.
Yeah,
Yeah, works.
yeah. Congratulations on getting that completed.
We'll see.
As a sidebar issue, Jesse, if you haven't got a notification, the pipeline is basically decided on a route.
I have not seen that.
Okay, it is along Yankee Road, and it'll cut back by the bus garage, but it's not gonna be on our property.
Liberty's property.
And then it'll cut straight across. And I got a letter on that
Corn wars.
Monday, I guess, or last Monday,
For now.
so.
Yeah, okay.
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 So my next thing is, we have been, obviously we have we've been working on our facility master plan, and I had shared with you that we met with OFCC and they actually toured the building, and two of their representatives agreed that the most logical sense is to do a high school and repurpose this into an elementary, middle school. They agreed with us. They had to take it back to the planning commission, which we were supposed to hear in November, and we didn't, and we didn't, and we didn't. Friday afternoon late, we got an email, and all it said was they've reviewed it and they're sticking with the base plan at the elementary. No explanation, nothing. So we met today, and we're going to try to get a meeting. If up in Columbus with them, I will attend to, again, we need more of an explanation than just no, especially since their representatives were here and agreed with us. The one representative that was here, who was kind of in charge of it, was not even in attendance in the meeting, so we will see where that goes with the percentage of funding for a high school. But what I wanted to share is, overall, I don't believe that necessarily changes anything. In my opinion, as we move forward, we had still talked about what we need to do is do the best option for our kids in our community. And at this point, we believe it is a high school. And at this point, I'm not really counting on funding from the state anytime soon. They continue to say we're close, but at this point, what is close, 10 years when I'm retired? I'm just not sure. So what my recommendation is going to be is to continue kind of as we planned. Hopefully that going to the community with a bond issue in November of 2024. I think we need to do an enrollment study to make sure that we, which I've already reached out and I have some names and I'm going to set those up to see where we are there, but to plan for an appropriate but fiscally responsible building, not go overboard, and try to, we can still continue with the funding beginning in 2029 when this bond issue of the current main campus rolls off, to try to make the tax increase as minimal as possible to the taxpayers. And I think the message to the community is that we have not asked for any additional new money since 2013, and actually in 2016, you guys gave millage back to the community. But you guys have been working on a new building long before I got here, and we are at the point where, in my opinion, we are continuing to wait and hold ground, and kids are missing out on opportunities, and I don't think we can afford to continue that. And again, this is like not threatening, but if we go to the community and they decide that, you know, and I understand this is a difficult time with the high property tax increase, but it's also, buildings are not going to get cheaper. The longer we wait, the more expensive they're going to be. We will still, at some point, the state will come in. It's not like we're going to say no when our number is called, and we would get, you know, we've entered into the ELP. We'll still get the reimbursement. We'll continue to fight for the larger percentage that we were promised. But if the community decides to say, you know, we're not willing at this point to fund a new building, it's just too much right now, my recommendation will be to move forward with closing the jail gym to add those 8 classrooms, because we need that space and we need it now, and probably some modulars at both campuses. I do think that the community has had a long history of being very supportive. I think we will work hard to get that. And again, we have to make sure that we are sending the message, this is a long-term investment for our community and our kids. And we would rather go that route than like a short-term, you know, fix where we're spending money just to get by. So I just wanted to update you there. Does anybody have any questions, concerns?
I would recommend that we have the county next at a facilities meeting to answer questions from the community.
I will, I definitely invite her next week.
Because that's, you know, we're being told what we're going to get or what we're not going to get, I guess, from the county, and the public needs to know that. So, but you're right. I mean, we got to do something.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think we need to keep moving. I mean, I know we've been working on it since that one was in like 2nd grade. We've been talking about building a new building, and she graduates from high school next year. So it's
Well,
been a long time coming. Like
the-
to stop again would just be
Yeah,
silly.
the sentiment that I got from the big community meeting was they're tired of talking about it, let's do something.
Correct.
And then when we met with the small group this summer, that was very resonate. They want us to make a decision and move forward. So again, as we look at this building, we can't get carried away and build the Taj Mahal of high schools, but we do need to do something that the community is proud of and can appreciate, but we also have to be fiscally responsible as we're going through this.
Right.
Because
Yep.
we can't ask our community to, with the tax increase, that they're already receiving, an additional burden. So
Yeah.
if we can, again, we can time this, so when the taxes roll off from this building, add the new building after that, and hopefully keep it at a minimal additional expense to our taxpayers.
Yep, okay.
Will we know pretty quickly what we had asked for in the fall?
What do you mean?
Mill-wise, if you're going to have a levy in 2024?
Oh, yeah, we would go, we will have to know the exact millage that we're asking when we pass a resolution in June. That's the first
Yeah.
resolution, so, yeah.
We talked about the LFIs that we're going to run into. There's one area that concerns me greatly, and I think we need to bring it up on the 17th, is what about safety? Is the public going to be responsible for all the safety items, or is there minimal safety items that OFCC will pay for?
Well, to be honest, when they are building buildings nowadays, it's different than it was
Yeah.
20 years ago. It's different than it was 5 years ago. And so as the architects design the buildings, a lot of that stuff is,
Implemented.
it's standard in there. And we're still going to use the OFCC regulations, because we will still want to get reimbursed as much as we can as we go through that process.
Okay. A lot to do.
Yep.
Have we set the next facilities meeting?
It's next
week.
next
Next week,
Wednesday.
yeah.
So I think a reminder went out. I thought it was today.
Yeah, it went out today.
So,
Okay.
Yeah, the 17th.
Yep.
okay. And the last thing I have is if anybody has any more questions about that. January is School Board Appreciation Month.
Oh.
So I'll speak for Amy here as well. I'm sure that we both, we are very, very fortunate in Monroe. Just looking around the state of Ohio, we have, there's a lot of school boards that are in a lot of turmoil with agendas and things, but I can honestly say that here in Monroe, the school board has one mission, and it's unified, and it's to do what's best for kids. And when you have a school board that operates like that, it makes our jobs a lot easier, and it truly makes it a great community effort to, again, move forward with a school district. So I have a couple things. One, OSBA sent a certificate of appreciation, so I have one for all of you there. Mr. Leeds.
What's the $6,000?
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Mr. Fulham.
Thanks, sir.
Mrs. Hagedorn. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that true?
And Mr. Grant.
Is that your second one?
And President Ted.
Or they probably didn't appreciate you at first.
And of course, we couldn't let you leave here without a little Monroe swag, so.
Yeah.
All right.
Compliant Monroe
Kind of
swag.
glass off now.
That's right.
Swaggy swag.
Keep you nice and warm.
Becky's gonna want to steal this
you.
from me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm used to this swag.
Thank you, sir.
Dave, you can wear that on Saturday.
Thank you.
Becky's gonna want us to try to steal this from me.
Yep.
Hazel's gonna try to steal it from me, so it's
I
fine.
need to wear,
Okay.
that's a nice
There we go.
Michigan plane.
Here we go. Thank you.
Is there a football game?
It's all good.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
It's good. Nice. Those are nice.
So we really do appreciate all you guys do for the school district and the community, so thank you.
Thank you.
And that's all I have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Buskirk. Section 4, Treasurer's Business.
All right.
Item 4.1.
Well, I hear there's a football game tonight, so I will try to be brief. All right. Can you open the monthly? Yes.
We had to do 4.1.
4.1 is the approval of the minutes.
I apologize.
I
jumped
gotcha.
ahead. Wow, I was so excited to get to that football game. All right. May I recommend the approval of the minutes from the work session? Hold on, am I on the right spot here?
Yep.
Yep.
December 6th.
Yeah, December 6th.
From December 6th and the regular meeting on December 11th.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Grant.
Second. Oh,
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
All right.
Go ahead and call the roll.
All right. Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mrs.
Or-
Hagedorn.
Me.
Mr. Fulham.
He gave it to me.
I gave
He
it to
gave
Mr.
it to-
Fulham.
I'm sorry.
It's all right. Thanks.
Mr.
I guess.
Fulham.
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion carried. All right, item 4.2. Wait,
I recommend,
okay.
yeah, I recommend approval of corrected minutes from the meeting, the regular meeting held on November 20th. We had a few just minor corrections, but I felt it was not minor enough, I guess, to necessitate just slipping it in there. So I'd like these changes to be approved.
May I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Any questions? Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion carried. Item 4.3.
I recommend the approval of the treasurer's financial report for December 31st.
May I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Dave's not used to
Second.
this.
Thank you, Mr. Grant.
He's excited.
I know, he's all about this thing. It's been years,
I haven't
man.
done it for a while. I'm on it.
So not much has changed. I have not actually changed any of the budget. We're still operating from the November approved forecast, which stands as our budget. We're still tracking to be about $1 million better than where we expected to be in the forecast. So not much new there. If we want to scroll down to the revenues, still the highest revenue changes are in interest and our school foundation. So that's pretty much where the extra $428,000 is coming from. It's primarily interest earnings above the budget and the state revenues. And the expenditure side, oops, blank page. Really, the expenditures are fairly on target. They're still a little volatile now because we still have several months to go. But for the month, they were up about $600,000. That's just random. We had perfect attendance bonuses in there, just some minor little hodgepodge of things, nothing in particular that rolls up to that $600,000. And that's about it. You can, on this one right here, you can see, compared to last year, though, for the year, we are up over $2 million. But as I mentioned before, that's from the changes, the catch-up expenditures that we've been doing all year. And that is a higher number because we did plan for most of those changes. So, but that's versus actual from last year. So that is all I have to report at this time.
Any questions?
No?
No. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Are you ready for the roll
Yeah,
call?
go ahead and call the roll.
All right. Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion carried. Item 4.4.
I recommend to approve the bond fund report for December 31st, 2023.
May I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
You guys made fun of me.
And
Go ahead. Is all the money where it's supposed to be?
It is.
thank you. Any other questions? No? Mrs. Moore, go ahead and please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn. Aye. Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion carried. Alright, thank you, Mrs. Moore. All right, section 5, superintendent's personnel business.
All right, section 5.1, it's recommended the board approve the following resignation.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
I guess I'll second it.
Thank you. Mrs. Hagedorn, thank you, Mr. Grant. Any questions, Mr. Grant?
I understand why, but she'll be missed.
Yes.
Yeah, I've got a quick comment. So, Coach Williams and I have a really good relationship. I've attended a lot of games and watched that program. It's been one of the programs that I really got involved with early when I was here at Monroe. They were very successful, so it was easy to watch. Got to go to a Final Four, multiple district titles, and that's just in the last 5 years. And I think that Stacy is probably one of, if not the best head coach in the area. I hate that she's having to make a tough decision to step aside, and I hate it for our program. I love it for her family. I think it's a great reason, and I understand it, but I just want to publicly state how much I am appreciative of the time and effort that she's put into the program for many, many years, holding a lot of her own records here at Monroe, so coming back to the community. I think that's what makes a strong community, is somebody who comes back and continues to give, and that's extremely important for the longevity of not just our athletics, but just our district as a whole. So would take a million Stacy Williams in every aspect. I appreciate her a ton.
Agreed.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Reluctantly, aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion carried. Section 5.2.
It's recommended the board approve hiring the following new employees for the 23-24 school year.
Get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Grant.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Discussion.
Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion carried.
Section 5.3, it's recommended the board approve the following extracurricular contracts for the 23-4 school year.
May I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Any questions? Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion carried. Section 6, Superintendent's Other Business, item 6.1.
It's recommended they approve a contract with the Hamilton County ESC for a special education services for a student at the Learning Center at North Norwood.
May I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Grant.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Any questions? Mrs. Moore, may you please call the roll?
Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion carried. Item 6.2.
It's recommended the board approve early graduation for the following students. They have met all graduation requirements.
Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Any questions?
Congratulations.
Yes.
Yeah. I
Great
really
job.
hope they come back
I
for
do
the
too.
graduation ceremony in
Yep.
May.
Yep. We always invite them back. Most of them do, so.
All right. Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion carried. Item 6.3.
It's recommended the board approve a resolution of urgent necessity and purchase the main campus domestic hot water tank replacement and removal of the old tank. I think we've talked about this at a few different board meetings. I think I shared at our, earlier that we thought it was going to be around 60, and it came back at 30? Yeah,
Good job, Jesse. Way to grind them down.
yep,
It's a pretty big tank.
yeah.
Clearly.
Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Any other comments or questions?
Good job.
When are they installing that?
So the 10th time will be the February President's Day weekend.
Okay.
On that day. Depends on, I mean, we're limping along right now. And so if it cuts loose in a way, we'll valve it off and have them come as soon as can.
Yeah.
Right now, that's the target.
Okay.
And if for some reason if we do have an issue between now and February, is there a contingency? Are we going to lose hot water to a good portion of the school or?
Temporarily, the core, the cafe would be most effective, but they've got a game plan already.
Yeah.
So.
For me, I would say in the future, I would have, if it was something that was limping along already, I would have loved to have done that over the longer break if it was possible, I know holidays and everything else, but hopefully we can get through the next few weeks and don't have that set back for any of the students or anything. But appreciate you getting the price down for sure.
That's right.
Next section is 6.4.
Hold on.
We still have
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Sorry.
Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn.
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion
Let them know they
carried.
can start that.
Item
Right now.
6.4.
6.4 is just the reading of, first reading for those updated policies. No action needed for that.
Excellent. All right, item 6.5.
It's recommended the board approve the following out-of-state trips for the athletic department. It's indoor track meets, no overnight, there and back the same day.
May I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Grant.
Second.
Oh,
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn.
Cut me out again.
I know, I had to pay her back. Any questions? Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion carried. Item 6.6.
It's recommended the board approve the 24-25 Monroe High School course description book, as counselors are chomping at the bit to start already scheduling for next year.
May I get a motion?
So moved.
Oh.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Any questions?
Keep him on his toes first day on the job.
I know, I like it, I appreciate it. All right, Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion carried. And it's 7:23.
It is 7:23.
Yeah.
Comments from
Oh,
the
comments.
board.
Yeah, I
Oh,
guess
no.
we can do it. I don't know.
You can do it what order you want, Mr. President.
All right. Before we adjourn, listen to comments from the board. Mr. Leeds?
You know, Mr. Buskirk made a comment a while ago about the board being easy to work with. It's easy to work with, and we've got such a fantastic staff. You guys are doing one whale of a job, and we appreciate it. And I'd like to take this opportunity at this time to thank Mr. Grant for leading this board the last 3 years and the job that you've done. And it's been great. You've done a tremendous job.
Thank you.
I'm serious about that.
Appreciate it.
Okay, that's all I got.
All right. And because you always had to just kind of say ditto,
I thought you were
I'm going to
gonna-
allow Mr. Grant to go second.
Well, I really don't have anything.
I don't know what to do with my, I don't know what to do.
No, I do finally get to speak, so I'm just going to sit here for a minute. No, welcome back. I'm looking forward to a great second semester. Again, time is flying, but I'm looking forward to it. And I'll echo what Tom said. We hear nothing but positive things about everyone and the staff in the board office. And so, as a board member, there's nothing better when you walk around a community and you know the talk that you are going to have with a community member is more than likely going to be a good one. And so that is a tribute to all of you. So thank you very much. So that's it for me.
Excellent. All right, Mr. Fulham?
Cool. I've got a short version. I do actually, I'm going to steal, so, Dave, I do want to thank you as well, because, coming in first time on the board, learning about decorum and how all this works, it's a stressful role to be the president, I'm sure, and it was always flowed very nicely. It was, I think, Debbie probably coming on as well at the same time. We made it very easy, so I want to thank you publicly as well for the time that you've been serving as president. So,
Thank you.
Yeah. So my high fives from around the Hive. I want to give a high five to all of our staff who assist with daily drop-off and pickup at our schools. I appreciate your assistance in keeping the traffic flowing and ensuring that our students get to and from the building each day safely. You're there for us in the wind, rain, snow, and cold temperatures, and it's always nice to be greeted by a smiling face each morning. Also, high five to our boys bowling team, who have started the season strong with a 7-0 record, including some impressive wins over Edgewood, Valley View, Lakota West, and Lakota East, who's currently tied for first place and undefeated in the GMC. In the 7-game stretch, the boys have knocked down 17,241 pins to their opponent's 14,341 pins. Dave, what is the difference between those two numbers?
3,200.
No, 2,900, but you were close, you were listening. Look. That averages out to be about 414 more pins per match. So good luck the rest of the season. I look forward to making it out to a couple of matches soon. Get out to a bowling match. They're fun. I know they're not like heavily attended, but I've been to a few. I haven't been this season yet, but I look forward to going out, and they're always really fun to watch, and especially the guys. They've got a lot of energy, and it's a good time. So,
All right.
you want me to keep going or just
No, it's
okay?
good. All right. You did a great job. I appreciate it.
Is that a high two?
Yeah.
Just
I'll tell
two.
you
Well,
what,
I
it's like a
it was a
slog.
2.5.
Three.
It was like 2.5. I put a little
That's like
Dave.
a three-toed slog.
Little Dave in
Put
there.
that down, that's a record.
All right.
No.
I'm right there with you, man. All right, Mrs. Hagedorn.
I would just piggyback on AJ's. The bowling team is a lot of fun to watch. I did go to one last year, and it was a lot of fun. So I'm hoping to get out there to at least one match this season. So we'll see. I'd just like to welcome everybody back for January after the holidays, starting off the school year. 24 with a bang. Just keep it up. We're halfway through the school year, so keep going, trugging along. That's all I have.
All right. Thank you. I do want to thank Mr. Grant. 3 years as board president. I'm sure it was everything you dreamed it would be and more. But yeah, you had the easiest time period, I'm sure. But I do want to thank you. Hopefully I can be half the president that you were, Dave. I do want to thank you guys for trusting me to be the board president. I will do a great job because that's just what I do. But we have a lot of exciting things going on this year, so we will truck along and get it all done and
Make it happen.
yeah, make it happen, man. But yeah, and to the teachers, I know the second semester can be difficult because you're just trying to get the summer break, but keep working hard and doing all the great things you guys always do, and it'll be a great second semester. All right, with that, I will take a motion to adjourn the meeting at 7:28.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. And Mrs. Moore, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Leeds.
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn.
Aye.
Mr. Fulham.
Aye.
Mr. Grant.
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion carried. Thank you, everybody.
Have a good evening.
Good job.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Good job. Yeah, I got a little, some nuances.
Well, it's,
The iron them out.
you just gotta get that's the first one, so once you get into the rhythm.
Oh, I was still on. I meant to ask you guys about it. I just.